10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
All right. What is up, Rabbit Junk?
Hey man, how you doing? Happy to be on.
Absolutely. So, for those viewers out there who might not know who you are, tell me who Rabbit Junk is.
Yeah, Rabbit Junk is a industrial metal, also future rock and digital hardcore act out of the United States. We've been around for a while. We've gone through some changes, but you can find our catalog stretching all the way back to 2004. Yeah, I'll just leave it there because we're going to talk more about it. So
No, for sure, for sure. So I've got to ask: is it difficult being in a band with your partner?
I wouldn't recommend it, but but in my case, no, it's not hard. So yeah, so my bandmate is my wife. We were married before we were in a band together.
Hmm.
My wife doesn't really consider herself a musician. That's not part of her identity.
Okay.
She does sing, she plays keyboard, she does all the things that musicians do, but she doesn't think of herself that way.
Okay.
And so I think that maybe that makes things easier for us because she's not really looking typically she's not thinking of Rabbit Junk as like a creative
Hmm.
outlet for herself. Though
Okay.
we collaborate on songs. We write songs together, write lyrics together, write the melodies together, we do all
Hmm.
sorts of things together, but I also do a lot of it just on my own.
Hmm.
And it's definitely something where I'm like, Rabbit Junk is my creative outlet. I need that release.
Right, for sure.
But she doesn't. So I think that we avoid some kind of like artistic conflict because
Hmm.
we see Rabbit Junk pretty differently. But I think I can imagine if you were two artists, they both saw the band as a creative outlet, and they were married on top of it all. I mean, the potential for conflict could be pretty extreme. You
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Because I when I read that, it was you and your wife, I'm like, how's that going? Because I feel like some people that wouldn't work at all.
Yeah. But we're coming up on 22 years of marriage, and um, she's a wonderful person to play shows with, go on tour with, and I mean, she's just
That's awesome.
so. I mean, I didn't know that it was going to be a 20-year band partnership
Right.
in addition to a 20-year marriage, but it's worked out really well. So
That's awesome. Um, all right. So, like, can you describe like some bands that you consider to be some of your influences, or?
yeah, I mean, let's like go back to like some of the most basic influences when I'm
Yeah.
a teenager in the 90s. I really I really liked listening to like metal, like Sepultura and Slayer, and I really
Yep.
liked Nine Inch Nails, and I really liked NWA, and I didn't see any issue with listening to them all on the same mixtape.
Oh,
And I didn't
absolutely.
even realize that I was making this. I was kind of constructing this particular taste.
Mhm.
I just I'm really into metal vibes, and I'm also really into dancing and ravey vibes, and I'm also really
I
into like
I hear
urban
you.
menace vibes, and I mean that's pretty much you can hear all of that in Rabbit Junk. So it
Oh,
really goes back
absolutely.
to
I've been listening to a
you know
lot of your stuff the past week, and I'm like, it's an interesting combination of sounds going on. I'm totally all about it, though.
right on. Yeah. So another big influence was the digital hardcore scene in the 90s. So Atari Teenage Riot was a real big influence. I think maybe because they made a career in music seem possible. It was very lo-fi and
Mm,
it was very punk rock and DIY, and I was like, man, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And I really liked their uh, just the sort of energy they brought. There's like nothing else really that had that,
For sure.
like, just didn't give a fuck kind of energy. And so I really, in the early days of Rabbit Junk, I was really trying to emulate that, I think. You
Kind of
know.
giving it like a punk attitude.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's still a lot of punk in Rabbit Junk. There's a lot. It's not. I don't think Rabbit Junk is taking itself too seriously all the time. There's like moments of humor and punk rock,
Mhm.
and I want it to be down to earth. Um, so I'm not trying to be this aloof, super cool,
Right.
whatever. It's just not me, and it's not my music. So
Exactly. And there's plenty of those out there. We don't need another one.
yeah, totally. Yeah, the scene is full of like these like aloof vampires. Like
It's like, all right, how about
probably
do something new here, please. So, where did the name Rabbit Junk come from?
I mean that's the question like, people give me that question all the time.
I'm
Look,
sure
the
they
honest
do.
truth is that it doesn't have a meaning, and I didn't want it to have a meaning.
Okay.
I wanted to have a name that wasn't going to be pigeonholed in any particular scene, um, because I have not, I'm very marginal to whatever scene I'm in. Like I'm always on the outskirts.
Mhm.
I'm pretty much an outsider. And so I don't want to have a name that cued like, oh, this is definitely industrial, or this or cued goth, or cued
Mhm.
anything, because the fact is I'm not really a much of a member of those scenes. Like I'm like so I kind of pass through and out.
Mhm.
Um, and so I wanted to leave my options open. And Rabbit Junk is like, it's just such a weird name, and it's like you're not
It
sure if
is.
it's serious or not serious, or like what the hell. It's just completely that. So it does its job. It's given me a lot of room to just do whatever I want. A band needs a name, and I just
Right.
wanted a name that was going to give me the most amount of freedom possible. In terms of its actual origins, I did not come up with the phrase Rabbit Junk. It's been
Mhm.
used multiple times in other contexts. It's been used in an anime soundtrack. There was a track from a long, long time ago called "Run Rabbit Junk."
Mhm.
I didn't know that. I first heard the term in some poetry, some beat poetry, and I think it's a drug reference, but it's never explained. I mean, this is before there was UrbanDictionary.com.
Right.
So we're talking about poetry from like the 40s, where a lot of the implicit meaning to these terms is kind of lost. So I had run into the term, and I was like, that's such a weird term. The thing that I didn't anticipate is that people were gonna. I didn't. I came up with the name before the word junk meant dick.
Gotcha.
Oops.
Yeah, I was telling
So
my
I did
friends I was
not
doing this
mean.
interview, and they were like, "I'm afraid to Google Rabbit Junk. You just tell me what they are."
Yeah, yeah. So, ooh, yeah. Yeah, I kind of, I missed that one. So that's not what I'm referencing. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not small mammal genitalia to me. It's just, you know, yeah.
Yeah, understandable. Let's see. What's your favorite snack when you're on tour?
So I like to eat healthy on tour. Oh my God, isn't that such a boring answer? I'm so sorry. I do. It's
Oh,
like
that's okay.
salads
I
and
try to
like
eat
I
healthy
eat
all the
light.
time.
I eat light, and the reason is because you're constantly overtired, and you're
Mhm.
dirty, and like you cannot like your outside is gross and your inside cannot be gross. So no burgers, no fries, no fried food. Um, I yeah, I just trying to live like a real healthy lifestyle. It's about keeping yourself sane.
That's good. I've heard lots of interviews where they're like, "Oh yeah, I get pizza every day," and I'm like,
No, 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 no.
"No."
No. So whenever there's an option to eat a salad with like some protein on it or something like that, it's pretty much what I eat.
That actually segues well into one of my other questions, which is,
Okay.
if you were a salad, what dressing would you have?
Ooh, if I would just have olive oil and balsamic vinegar, that would just be
Ooh, there
I'm
we
an oil
go.
and vinegar kind of salad. Yeah, simple. A little bit of salt on top.
Yeah, there we go. See, I'm
I'm
gonna ask.
absolutely not ranch. I can tell you, I'm the antithesis. Whoever would be salad with ranch, I am the opposite of that person.
Okay. See, I'm going to ask everyone I interview this question, and at the end of the year, I'm going to tally up the answers.
Okay, we'll see. All right, okay. So
For
got
sure.
oil and vinegar from JP. All
Oil and vinegar. All right,
right.
Rabbit Junk official. All
Yeah.
right. Let's see. All right. So, what's your biggest challenge right now as a band?
The biggest challenge is that I'm not just a musician. I'm also a college professor,
Oh, geez.
and and I live in Southern California, and it's really expensive. And I have a PhD, and I don't really get paid enough just to be a college professor. I wouldn't be able
Mm-hmm.
to afford a house. I have 2 kids. I wouldn't be able to raise my kids. So I have to make money off of rap junk. And luckily, I'm very, very lucky. I can say I do. I make almost as much from rap junk as I do from being a college
Mm-hmm.
professor. But the problem is that I can't really devote myself fully to either one. I'm like split. I cannot pick a lane. I'm in 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge is that I don't feel like I'm producing enough content, which is a crazy thing to say because Rabbit Junk just put out an album, plus we put out several singles, plus we did several remixes
Mm-hmm.
last year. But the music market right now is a hungry place, and it wants basically a new track every month. And if you don't do that, then what you find is that your rankings in the streaming services start to slide. So, so yeah, one of my biggest challenges I don't have the time that I want to make music. It's also my most favorite thing in the world to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I miss it, you know, and I start going a little bit crazy if I go a couple months without making music. I mean, and I don't mean figuratively. I mean, I think
Right.
I actually have some sort of weird mental health problem that I am soothing through making music. So if I don't
Mm-hmm.
make music, I just start going a little funny. Get depressed. Feel aggressive. It's just like I'm unhappy, right? Um, but also, you know, whenever I'm devoting all my time to music, you know, as a college professor, you're not just a teacher. You're meant to be producing original research and a lot of it, you know. And so
Mm-hmm.
I also, when I'm working on music, I don't feel like I have enough time to really devote to my research, and devoting to my research,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big chunk of my job. So I'm really stressed. So that's my biggest challenge, is actually just trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
balance this crazy ass life. I don't know anybody else who's a college professor and a professional musician, and I know they're out there. I just don't know them personally, and I don't know how they do
Right.
it. And so I feel like I'm kind of reinventing the wheel, you know? So
No, understandable. That's crazy.
yeah.
Is there a way to like make the two overlap somehow? Like, yeah,
Oh,
I don't
I
know.
mean, I've tried. I got my PhD in political science,
Mm-hmm.
and I research uh, things related to the criminal justice system. So, like, you know, policing and arrests and
Mm-hmm.
incarceration. And I have tried, and I just fell into that line of research. I mean, it was not like a life objective of mine. It just happened. It's a long and boring story, and so we're not even going to get into it, because people can't just suddenly find themselves getting a PhD. I know that's a weird thing, but it just happens. Um, and I've been trying to figure out how to get the two to overlap. One idea that I have is that there's a lot of music is made in prisons, and I think that music might have a pretty interesting message,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not a lot of opportunities, of course, to record that music. And so I think one thing I might do is I might take my mobile recording gear and head into the prisons and find incarcerated musicians, or even just, they don't even have to be musicians. I mean, just incarcerated people who are making music. I mean, when they don't have instruments, they make music with the bars and their bodies, and they
Yep.
make it happen. I want to record that and kind of get it out there. So that's one idea I have to overlap the two.
Mm. That sounds like a really cool project.
I think it could be really cool. But it's not my job just to simply go and record people. I mean,
Right.
I have to I have to explain the meaning of it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's what an academic does, right? I have to tell you, like, here's this thing and it means this. And it's about just making time for the field research. So I hope that maybe in the next couple of years I can make that, um, make that project come to fruition.
I hope so too. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. So you said you're based out of Southern California?
We were in Seattle
Okay.
for most of Rob Joint's existence, and so we were definitely a Seattle Northwest band. I mean,
Mm.
we got some grunge to us. I mean, if you go see our live show, we're in masks, or we're not dressed up. I mean, I think that
Right.
we grew up in a very down to earth kind of punk rock music scene, and so
Mm.
I didn't even realize that about us until we moved to Southern California, and I was like, oh man, we're such like a fucking Seattle band. The way we present ourselves, like so, like and so we moved down to Southern California because I got a job teaching at San Diego State University, and so
Gotcha.
now we're in San Diego. I mean, Seattle and San Diego are very, very different places. So there's been
Mhm.
some culture shock. I do like the sun a lot. So I don't like Seattle weather, but we all miss Seattle. We're torn. But yeah, so we're based out of Southern California right now, but I think our Bandcamp, I think Spotify pegs us in LA. Because there's not a lot of point in saying you're from San Diego
Yeah.
in terms of the music scene. It's a big town, but it just doesn't have a very developed music scene. Not for what Rabbit Junk's doing anyway.
Yeah, for sure. So how'd you well obviously I saw you guys at Dark Force. How'd you end up getting booked for a show that far away from California?
Well, we get offers for shows all across the United
Hmm.
States and Europe. And
Have you gone abroad yet?
typically, what was that?
Have you gone abroad yet?
Oh yeah, Rabbit Junk's played in the
Oh, awesome.
UK, yeah, a number of times. So we definitely were at the stage of the career where we would be, nationally touring act. The reason why we're not typically taking people up on those is that
Yeah.
we have jobs and we have kids. Now, our kids are getting old enough where they could come with us on tour, and
Hmm.
we are like seriously thinking about like we could homeschool them on the bus, or on the whatever, and then we could go out and play some more. But certainly, only that's a pretty recent development. I mean, we had really little kids; it was not realistic to go,
Yeah, for sure.
be out on the road. So, I mean, we made our choices. We sacrificed, a lot of touring to do other things like have family. Yeah,
Well, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah. So, and most of our, I mean, the biggest concentration of Rabbit Junk fans are in places that we just would not expect. Like
Mm,
Eastern Europe, Finland. I mean, Poland, Russia. We see a ton of Rabbit Junk fans in Russia, and unfortunately, um, we are cut off from those fans right now.
right.
Um, they're not able to buy our stuff or listen to us even. I think Rabbit Junk was removed from all the Russian streaming services.
Oh shit.
Um, you know. So we're like an outlawed product, I think, in Russia at this point, along with a lot of other American bands. It wasn't
Right.
particularly targeted at Russia.
Right.
And we've gotten a lot of offers. People want to see us in these places, and we want to go. We want to go so bad. So yes, and promoters are like, "Hey, come out and play Warsaw," and we're like, "We're
Hmm.
so into it." But yeah, it's expensive.
Well, for
It would
sure.
be really, really expensive to fly, even just the two of us, but let alone the four of us.
Hmm.
Our kids, fly us out there. But at some point, life was short and it's going to end awfully soon. And so, yes, I want to play more shows than we have. you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Uh, what's the most memorable show that you have played?
Well, there's a number of shows that are memorable because they were bad. So I'm trying to unremember those. I think this last show that we played at Dark Force Fest was
Yep,
really cool. It was
it
really
was.
cool. It was really cool because the sound guys were having all sorts of problems throughout the whole night.
Yes, they were.
We got up on stage and they couldn't. They just like we were fine. We were ready to go, but they didn't have the sound going. Something was up with it, whatever. And I just remember, we're standing up there and we're like, okay, I guess we're like really itching to play, and people in the crowd started saying Rabbit Junk, Rabbit Junk, and I was like, oh come on.
Mhm.
This is such a cool memory, Like, I mean, I'm glad that the sound got fucked up, just so there's the opportunity for people to chant Rabbit Junk. So that's pretty memorable. I'm not gonna forget that one anytime soon.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome. All right. Let's see. Have you had any like really weird interactions with fans that you want to talk about?
Yeah, you know what's great about Rabbit Junk is that we
Mhm.
have like uniformly awesome fans, and I think that's just because the vibe of I think our social
Mm.
media presence and our music. I think it just invites people that we like. It's every single time I meet a Ravaging fan, I'm like, oh man, we could totally be friends. We have a bunch of stuff in common, and like you're very cool and very chill. Like every single time, I have um, I haven't had any. I don't think I've had a single negative interaction with a Ravaging fan ever. I
That's
mean,
that's
it'll
awesome
probably happen at some point,
for sure.
but it hasn't happened. And then online, all of the that the Ravagen community on social media is all like they're all super nice. I mean, they comment to each other. They're like, "Whoa, everybody's so nice in this group. Like
Mhm.
everybody's so mutually supportive." And so yeah, I think we're cultivating a really good vibe. And that's probably because we're not saying a bunch of hateful, misogynistic, racist shit in our lyrics. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Which
For
would
sure.
invite when you say that stuff in your lyrics, then that's the sort of people you invite. And if I met those sorts of people, yeah, no, it would not be a good interaction. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
definitely.
Yeah, so I'm probably unlikely to get along with neo-Nazis, and so
Yeah.
as far as I know, there's no neo-Nazi rap junk fans. So
I should hope not. Let's see. All right. So, if you could collaborate with any artist, who would you pick?
um, I think a Rabajunk Health collaboration would be cool.
That would be cool.
Um, I think Rabajunk Blue Stali collaboration would be cool. I I've recently collaborated with Morris Black, and
Hmm.
that's one of my favorite collaborations ever. Also recently collaborated with Laserpunk, and that's also that both those collaborations made really great tracks. I'd love to do more work with them, and I've already have something in the works with Laserpunk again, so we're doing another track.
Nice.
Um, I talked to Danny Blue at Dark Force Fest, who I just adore. I've never met him before. That was the first time I met him, and I'm like, dude, you're so awesome. And I really I totally want to collab on, I want to make just something very poppy. I'm thinking just like, um, God, I'm sorry. There's an 80s artist that I'm like, I cannot recollect their name right now, which is such a bummer. But I hear that art. Yeah, this is not a very good story, is it? But I hear like basically taking like trying like recreating like a modern industrial version of that artist with Danny Blue. So, and I've already talked to Danny Blue about doing that collab, and I think that's something that maybe I could get started this summer. So,
That would be great.
yeah, it would be super fun, and uh, Danny's energy in this scene is such a welcome thing. Like, thank God.
Mm.
Like, very good. More of it, please. Let's just. I think what I noticed at Dark Force Fest is that the goth industrial scene, whatever you want to call it, has become so much more diverse than it was 10 years ago.
Hmm.
And it's like I just think it makes that scene so much stronger and more
Oh,
interesting.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. So.
Yeah, definitely. Um, let's see. What question do you get asked that you're sick of being asked? Like, is there one question everybody asks and you're tired of it?
People do ask the origin of the name a
Yeah,
lot. They're like,
I'm
they're
sure.
like, what does Ravagunk mean, or where does Ravagunk come from? And like but what I should do is start coming up with elaborate lies.
Hmm.
I should come up with the craziest versions of the origin story for that name, and then tell everybody a different version,
Yes,
and then just see if I can see some disagreement. So I think maybe I'm just being tired of asking that question because I keep telling people the truth, and the truth is just not all that interesting. So thanks for this. I'm gonna start lying through my teeth, and people are like, what does the name mean? And I'm like, well,
start. Yeah,
don't tell anybody, but this is
yeah.
what it means. So,
Go like the Joker with it. Just have a different answer for everybody.
yeah, exactly. Different answer for everybody. So totally.
All right, my buddy Stephanie says yes. Totally come up with crazy stories about it.
I
For
think
sure.
that's the thing to do now at this point, right? There's not why am I telling the truth? That's my default. I'm like, oh, I will give you an honest answer.
Right.
And I'm in the entertainment business. People don't want honesty, it's like they want the myth.
Exactly.
So
For
I'll
sure.
start feeding them.
All right. So if you could pick one Rabbit Junk song to play for a potential new fan, what song would you pick?
I would pick something off of the latest album, Apocalypse for
Hmm.
Beginners, because I think that's the most rabbit junky of all rabbit junk albums. I think it was a distillation of so many things. Um, and maybe it'll just be the first track off that, which is called Heavy, which is not. It's a fair for a rabbit junk song. It's a fairly simple song. There's not
Hmm.
a lot of like twists and turns, and And one thing I like to do in rap junk songs is do things that are surprising, and people are like, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." But that track, Heavy, I specifically stayed away from twists and turns. I just wanted it to be like real straight up sounding track that pretty much gives you the sound palette and the energy of Rabbit Junk. So yeah, why not start them off with that? And I don't think that they would say, "Oh yeah, that's the best Rabbit Junk song." I think they would be like, "Okay, I get it. It's a good appetizer, right?
Yeah,
I got Heavy, and now I can kind of move on." Because I think that if you start somebody who's totally unfamiliar with Rabbit Junk, and if you start them off with some of these, I mean, some of the songs are a little bonkers, right? Like say
mhm,
off of Apocalypse for Beginners, the track Stone Cold, it has lyrics in German and English. It is like punk rock and drum and bass and like halftime. There's like so much shit going on that the first time people hear it, they're like, I'm not sure what just happened, you know? And they're like, I'm not sure if maybe I like it, like I'm like, yeah, it's like an unfamiliar food, right? Like you got to have like a
right.
second taste. And so I made the track Heavy to be a little bit more of a familiar food, it's like people get a taste of it. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, that's a good answer.
Final answer.
Final answer. So, how'd you get into making music in the first place?
I my mom had an acoustic guitar laying around when I was 12. I remember picking
Mm,
it up and I just got a magical feeling. I didn't know how to do anything with it. I just felt, yeah, I don't know. I remember that moment. And I remember coming up with like a little riff, even though I don't know how to play it. I just remember coming up with a little pattern. Um, and yeah, I just felt all of this, I think, anxiety and dread melt away. And
mhm,
then when I put the guitar down, all that anxiety and dread was right back. And I think that maybe that planted the seed. And I asked, yeah, I had on my 14th birthday, I asked for a guitar, and I got a guitar. And that's pretty late. 14 is not, like both my kids are on instruments, and they started when they were like 5 or 6.
mhm,
Um, so I mean, pretty soon, I pretty much got a guitar at 14, and almost like that year, decided I'm like, I want to do this for a career. Like that, this is what I wanted, which is, that's a crazy thing to decide. I had no connections. I had no idea how any of it would work. I mean, it was just like this crazy idea. I started. I learned how to play guitar really quickly, and I started uh, playing in bands
mhm,
around the Seattle area. So I was like 14, 15, and so I was in bands with all these like 20 somethings. Played my first club show when I was 15, actually playing bass in a band. Was playing shows pretty regularly in bands all throughout my teenage years. And I found that being in a band was really difficult. It's hard
mhm,
to manage, 4 or 5 troubled, distinct personalities, right? And so
right.
I saw a pattern that like bands don't stay together. People in bands have financial problems, substance abuse problems,
Mhm,
relationship problems. They're like musicians are messy. And so I decided, I want to have a project that where I just rely on myself, essentially, or I rely on very few people. And that's how I got into electronic music. And this was in the mid '90s when electronic music was becoming more well known anyway. But I got
mhm,
a drum machine. I started just experimenting with electronic music production, and I really, really fell in love with that more than even like playing guitar or being a singer or something like that. It was just creating my own world in a digital space. And I mean, that's still what I'm doing today. Um, and I just absolutely adore it. I don't think I'm happier in any other space. Basically, if I in my studio alone working on music, it's like that's like JP's natural environment or something. And then you take me out of that environment, and instantly I'm like, this is not as good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's see. Stephanie is listening to us while working. Nice.
Hey, Stephanie, how's it going?
Let's see. Is there a question that no one has ever asked you, but you really wish an interviewer would ask?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a great question. Um, I wish interviewers would be a little harder on me, like ask
Mhm,
some more combative questions. I feel this way about my students as well, when I'm like teaching, when I'm lecturing, and sometimes I would just wish a student would be like, shit, blah blah blah, just really push back because it does add a certain kind of energy, like it gives the conversation some higher stakes.
That makes
So and interviewers tend to like, like they appreciate that you've come on, so they ask you some usually pretty softball questions, But I'm wondering if there's like some harder edged questions to ask Ravajak. I mean, I think Ravajak, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've
sense.
fucked a lot of things up. A career in the music business is there's no guidebook. Like you just don't know what the hell you're doing really
Right.
most of the time. And I've been very, very independent most of the time. I have turned down lots of label offers, um, mostly because they're just not good financial deals, but also because
Right.
I'm worried about. I've been worried about giving up control. I think uh, even though I'm pretty sure a label would probably help me make a better album. They would probably give me the sort of feedback I need, corrective feedback
Mhm.
I need. But I was worried about losing that opportunity to do. I feel like I grow every single time I make a track or I make an album. I get better as a
Mhm.
producer, better as a musician. I don't want to plateau. I think I've been worried about if I give control to somebody else, maybe I'll plateau. I think that's probably a bullshit anxiety.
No, it
Um,
makes sense in some ways,
but,
though.
so I've been really independent, and made lots of mistakes, right? So it's like put out tracks that probably weren't ready to be put out,
Mhm.
sort of thing. I don't know. So yeah, I don't have a specific question in mind, like a question I never get asked, but I do. I think I'm probably worthy of some like harder edged questions. I'm a grown up. I can take it.
Not hard to answer
um,
questions. This might
you
be a good
know,
one. What exactly is the worst thing that you have fucked up, and were you able to acquire a lesson from it?
Oh, every fuck up has produced a lesson, and so fuck ups are sacred in that way, right? Because without
Yeah.
them, there is no growth, and so it's like you have to be appreciative of the things you fuck up. But I think that I have made I think one of the mistakes that haunts me the most um is I've released a lot of music with low production value. Like the sound quality has not been that great for a
Mhm.
lot of Rabbit Junk tracks. Um I've been learning as I go, right? And so I mean I made all these rookie mistakes recording albums on my own with no help and then
Mhm.
releasing these albums to the world. So my mistakes are public, you know, and only to look back and be like, oh my God, that sounds really, really bad. Um, and I think I've been stubborn about. I think one of my mistakes is not utilizing corrective feedback.
Mhm.
So I think people have said like, oh, this sounds like a really cool song, but it's like it's muddy. I can't really hear what's going on, or like what are you using to record or something like that. And I think I'm thinking about, that's the mistake maybe I was making 20 or 15 years ago. I think I was just stubborn about being like, well, I'm just gonna do it my way. I wish I could go back in time and have a conversation with myself and be like, yo, man, don't rush this music out.
Mhm.
Take a little bit of time. It doesn't have to come out like, in the next 2 weeks. All right. Why don't you take a little bit more time? And also, you don't know what you're doing, JP. I'm sorry, man. You don't know what you're doing. Like you have Pro Tools and you're just fucking pushing buttons, man. You don't have no idea.
Mhm.
Maybe take a class. Maybe take a music production class. I know, crazy idea to go learn, but I was just very, very stubborn about that. So I think that's one of the biggest things I fucked up. I think I sometimes I worry about, would my music career be more developed if I had been producing better quality
Mhm.
songs? Hey, the thing that the songs have, look, they're really authentic, they're really raw, they're super real, but a lot of them do sound like crap.
Have you
So,
considered like going back and taking some of those ones and like redoing them or
it's a
remastering them or
mistake.
anything? Or...
It's a mistake when bands do that. Like, no,
You
fans
think?
never like it. I don't think that fans never like here's the polished version of that song that you love, right?
Mhm.
They like the dirty, gritty, horrible sounding version, the homemade sounding version. Fans actually really like that. And when I've tried to go back and like, I'll redo it or something like that, there's always like a contingent of fans who are like, dude, this song's ruined now, you know?
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So
See, I
I'm not
don't
doing
like
it. You
that.
know
I
what? I'm just
maybe I'm just an outlier, but like I love it when bands do that. I will, listen to both side by side and like really try to hear, all the differences. And I love that shit.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, Ravjunk has a song called "Industrial Is Dead" that was released a
Mhm.
long time ago, 2006, I think. And I recently re-released it, and it sounds much better, and you can hear much more what's going on. And a lot of people were like, "How the fuck is it that different?" And I'm like, "I just simply know what I'm doing now, and I didn't then."
Right.
Um, but there was a contingent of fans who were like you ruined the song, you know. It's they're like, I liked it because it was a piece of shit, and that it's like it had meaning to me, like its lack of quality was meaningful. Please don't mess with that. And so I'm like, okay, I think
Huh.
I won't. You know, I think I'm just gonna I won't. I'm just gonna put my energy into new stuff. I think.
That's really interesting. I never
Yeah,
heard anyone say something like that before.
yeah, yeah,
Huh.
yeah. So
Okay.
I think it's a little bit like here's like an analogy. You know, there's the original Star Wars movies,
Right.
and they had all sorts of production value problems, right? And then
Right.
they re-released them, and they improved those. You know, redid the CGI, and they did this.
Mm,
And how many people were like, "It sucks now"? You know, they liked the nostalgic, innocent version of those movies. You know, the 1970s versions where everything looks a little crappy. So that's the analogy. Sorry, I have a kitty in the background. I hope that's not distracting.
oh, that's fine. I'm surprised
Okay.
mine's not yelling at me.
Okay. All right.
Stephanie says, so therefore, in essence, releasing things muddy was not really a fuck up because if the fans don't like the remastered version.
Okay, so I see your point there. So those bad sounding songs, some people really strongly connected with them, and that's why Rabbit Junk has a career, right? You know, I mean,
Mm,
so I did reach people. What I'm worried about is that the number of people that I was able to reach was limited by the fact that the songs were challenging to listen to. You know, they have like too much distortion or grit or high end or low end or something.
mm,
There's just something kind of messed up about all of them. So yeah, that's what I have to live with. So I think, you know, this was a question about regret, right? You know, it's like, what have you
right.
fucked up really bad? What's the lesson? I regret some of my stubbornness, in life in general and in music in particular.
No,
I've
that
been,
makes
you
sense.
know, I was a stubborn, prideful person for too much of my life, you know.
Mm,
So it happens. Youth, you know, you grow out of it. So,
for sure. Is there any venues that you really want to play but you haven't? Like specific venues or
well, we're booked for Cold Waves in Chicago.
no?
We're playing the Metro, and I've never been on the Metro main stage. I am so looking forward to that. That is a huge stage. It's going to be a little intimidating, actually. I mean, there's just the two of us. We're just gonna be up there, you know. There's not a whole lot, you know, it's just the two of us. It's gonna be a lot of running around, you know, like to
Mm,
make sure that we connect with everybody. So I'm gonna be continuing to get in shape for that show so I can run around and not lose my breath. And I'm playing guitar and singing at the same time. I'm a busy guy, and Jen's playing keyboards and singing at the same time. So we gotta make sure our cardiovascular is good. So I'm really looking forward to playing the Metro. Um, and venues that, you know, some of the best Rapid Junk shows have actually been in really shitty venues, right? So
mm,
small, you know, little basement venues that can only hold a crowd of 70 people, but the sort of energy that you can make when it's just wall to wall packed, you know,
yeah.
everybody is super happy to be there. Those are incredible nights. So, you know, a big glitzy venue doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good show. Sometimes really lo-fi venues are awesome for shows.
Yeah, for sure. Stephanie says y'all need to play more in California because of shitty venues.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we've been in talks for a long time with Bar Sinister in LA, who've been wanting us to play there for a while now. And there was the pandemic, so we didn't play during that. And then we moved in 2021, and we just could not fit shows into that year. So we're just getting back to playing for real now. So we just played Dark Force Fest. We're playing Cold Waves. We might be playing Seattle. I hope we do. And we might be playing LA. And Midwest and East Coast people, I know we're going to try and make it out. We just got a lot of logistics to figure out, you know?
For sure.
Yeah.
I hope you make it out this way though.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all the way up in Maine, so
It's gonna be hard. It's real hard, you know. That would be hard to do.
yeah, for sure.
Maine is far away, my friend. Wow, you are
Oh,
really the literal opposite side of the country from where we are right
oh yeah, for sure.
now. Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you wanted to touch upon that I didn't ask?
I don't think so. This was a cool opportunity. You know, if there's anybody who's watching this and they don't know, you know, Rabajunk just put out a new album in October of last year called Apocalypse for Beginners, and I really want you to listen to it because I worked really, really hard on this record. Doesn't mean I didn't make mistakes on it, but I mean it is just a work of authentic blood, sweat, and tears. So check it out. And we have a lot happening this year. So we have some festival dates that I just mentioned, but also we were releasing some exclusive singles. We are releasing an exclusive single for Fixed Recordings. That's the home of people like Cell Dweller. And we are going to be featured on a movie soundtrack, but I'm not allowed to discuss the details beyond that. I have signed a non-disclosure agreement. So I'm very excited about that, though. Very excited about this project. We are doing a track with the record label Brutal Resonance. And so just be looking out for some singles. And I am really stepping up my game for these singles. So whatever I achieved on Apocalypse for Beginners, that is no longer good enough. And it's time to take it to the next level. So
sweet. All right, before we wrap this up, I am going to announce who I have next week. Next week, 4:30 Eastern, I have Lee from the Funeral Portrait. I'm definitely freaking looking forward to that one. That's going to be great. And then at 6 o'clock, I will have the Gothsicles, another band I found at Dark Force. So, yeah, I am definitely looking forward to that.
okay, when you interview Brian from Gothsicles, you tell him JP says hi.
I will.
He is a cool guy, and Gothsicles are a cool band. And if you do not know them, go listen to them and go to their shows. Though it's all about the shows.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Tune in next week, everybody, and have a good one.